And she's a second-year student at the University of Nottingham studying English literature. And Enoch Mukungu is a second-year student of history and politics at Warwick University. Welcome, both of you. Tell us, first of all, how you feel about the testing and being able to go home on the 2nd of December. Enoch.
It sounds relieving, but I think after sort of months of false hope from both the university and the government, I don't know how much I trust it.
What don't you trust?
Well, I feel like every time the university's sort of been like, you can go back to school, blended learning will work, online learning it will be just as good, and yet every time you sort of come here to experience it, it's never lived up to the expectations. So I don't know how reliable this will work the same way they're saying it's going to work.
So if it doesn't work, in terms of if you're not offered testing, would you go home anyway? How would you feel about that?
I think it's at home, at my home in London. I have a sister who has asthmatics, which obviously she's shielding. So I'd be very worried about going home. But at the same time, I don't know if I want to be stuck in a university town that's been deserted by everyone else going home over the Christmas holidays.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, would you be prepared to stay there for Christmas?
I think rationally, I feel like I should say yes, but I feel like deep down I would end up going home. So I don't know if I could face the loneliness of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's perfectly understandable. Holly, what are your thoughts on being able to potentially get a test and get home from the 2nd of December?
I'd say there's definitely a kind of aspect of it that is, will we all get tested? There's certainly a level of uncertainty in that regard, but I think because the tests were only announced sort of in the past few days, I personally had already started planning sort of a COVID Christmas, if that makes sense. I was planning on going home with enough time to isolate for 2 weeks before Christmas Day anyway, just so that I can see people if that's legal at that point. But also I really like my housemates. If it is that it's illegal or whatever, I'd be more than happy to have a Christmas here.
You're in your second year, you're both in your second year. What has this year been like compared with last year, Holly?
It's been completely different in so many ways. I think the biggest difference that I sort of thought of going into the year would be like, oh, well, clubs are shut. Because when it was August and September, we hadn't moved into Tier 3. I don't think the rule of 6 hadn't fully been implemented at that point. I personally never went to any madhouse parties or anything, but you could still sort of say hi to friends and go to the pub and meet up with people in small groups and stuff like that. But then there's kind of the smaller things of, you go into a seminar room, you have to wipe down everything, and time is cut in seminars because you have to give yourself 20 minutes at the end to clean. And there's so many aspects of university life that are just completely altered.
Some students have been saying that they feel like their needs have really not been met. They've been overlooked. How do you feel?
I completely agree with them. I feel especially bad for first years this year who sort of missold the dream. The government said, the government and universities, as we said, they said things will be normal. Things will be as normal as we can make them. Everything, you can come back, you can come to university, you can live on campus. We'll try and provide the best experience possible for you. And yet, by the time they got here, they had to lock down for 2 weeks. All the events were cancelled. I know other universities are on in-person events, but Warwick had no in-person events for first years. And now we're in lockdown again. And now obviously there's this whole testing situation might be coming up. I feel nothing's been the same as last year, and I feel very bad for them.
And in terms of actually being there, I mean, some have questioned whether it's an experience that's worth having right now, but there's obviously not much outside of it. I guess at least being at university, there's a protection. You're not in the job market. How do you feel about sort of sitting it out and seeing what happens and the benefits of being there or not?
I guess that is all the grim truth of the whole thing. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But I honestly, I feel like there are many people I know at university who may have been better off this year if they simply either deferred a year or maybe dropped out, went home, and just with their families rather than facing sort of the mental health nightmare that's being stuck in a room of a group of people you don't really know particularly well, a group of flatmates you no longer get along with.
Thank you both very much for joining us, Enoch and Holly. Wishing you all the